Welcome everyone to the captive audience. Sorry, I got a bit of a late start here tonight. Had to make a stop at the chiropractor to get something adjusted with the back. All doing well now, um, but I did want to run and fly solo and run through some of the top issues and stories that are encompassing the state of Oregon, and of course, there's a lot of national implications for just about everything that's happening. Top of the news everywhere. President Trump has ordered, and I believe 200 troops have been authorized to go and perform federal functions for 60 days. These are Oregon National Guard to, in particular, protect federal facilities, specifically ICE facilities, and to ensure that federal personnel are able to duly execute their lawful federal uh, roles. In the case of ICE, it is detain and, in some cases, of course, deport people who are in the country illegally or have violated their terms of being able to remain in the country illegally or legally. And as we know, this is something that has been going on for a while. Uh, that ICE has been that Antifa specifically. We don't need to mince words here. Antifa has been laying siege to the ICE building in Portland. The local law enforcement and the state law enforcement have sworn to do nothing about it, actually, and that's what they've done. They have not protected the federal facility. Occasionally, they arrest somebody for some infraction of the law, but for the most part, the Antifa individuals have been able to exercise free reign in doing this. Well, um, uh, the president calling for this has portrayed Portland as a place that actually has rampant crime and lawlessness, and it does. And the Democrats are in full disinformation mode. They know that the local media has done a poor to nil job of actually reporting what's going on a regular basis in Portland. And as it turns out, it's not just Portland. Eugene, Oregon is also being impacted by this. Antifa decided last week to go out of a sense of solidarity and uh, engage in violent acts and intimidation, not peaceful protesting, at the ICE facility in Eugene. And local political leaders of the Democrat stripe had almost nothing to say about it. Uh, the Congresswoman Val Hoyle said that it. Let me see if I can find this because she did comment on it. She repeatedly claimed that this is just a small facility and just with a holding cell and blah 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 because she did a tour of it. But then she also did two other things. She said that the people, she didn't say Antifa, she just couldn't say it, who recently came from Portland to Tuesday's protest at the federal building in Eugene were, quote, incredibly unhelpful, unquote, and said illegal actions have consequences. Do they? For the most part, that's not the case. And incredibly unhelpful means that it's incredibly politically inconvenient for her. And that's what she means. Because for the longest time, she couldn't give a hoot what anybody did in Portland or Eugene at all. Uh, and she then went about attacking the Trump administration. She signed on to a letter and everything, claiming that there's no reason for any um, federal uh, officers or National Guard to be employed to deal with what's going on in Portland or anywhere else in the state. And she called the administration's actions against immigrants, quote, horrific, unquote. Um, and this is the pure spin mode because there's no contrary opinions. no contesting of the account that she's given being presented in this case by KLCC, which is the public broadcasting station, the OPB affiliate in Eugene. And so they're not covering what anybody's saying, and that would contradict this. But there was, in fact, an outright um, effort to commit acts of violence and to clash with um, law enforcement and with ICE. They beat on the doors and the windows, and they tried to intimidate people who were present in the building at the time. And we've seen now that this is after, in just recent weeks, not only was Charlie Kirk allegedly shot, and I'll just say allegedly, um, by someone claiming Antifa affiliation or ties or motivations, and citing that etched into the bullets that were used. But then just last week, a week and a half ago, we had another person, again, claiming Antifa motivations and affiliation, that went and took a sniper rifle and killed 2 people at an ICE facility. There were detainees that got killed, but they were trying to kill, and they said in their note, terrorize ICE agents and frighten them into not performing their jobs. It's not working. They're doubling down, and so is the president and Attorney General Bondi, and action is being taken. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's been arrested for lighting Ice Cube's bus on fire. And I really don't know yet, because the investigations, they take forever and they are unrevealing generally as to what people's motivations are, especially if it's politically uh, inconvenient to state why someone lit his bus on fire. But on social media, they're saying it's because it said ICE on the side of the bus. And so some moron went and tried to burn the tires on it and light it on fire. And so anyway, yeah, it's completely nuts. There's been a long string of these things. And this is in addition to the fact that, frankly, uh, the the global headquarters of Antifa is Portland, Oregon. So this is a national issue because of the reach that Antifa has through the country and the involvement in these various attacks and activities. Here's a good summary from Andy No of the far left trans Tifa, as he calls it, violence that's been taking place in recent weeks, and you can go check it out. It lays out who they are and what they're doing. And the Democrats are shocked and amazed that there's that people have finally gotten fed up and perceived at the national level that the danger has grown to the point that they're just done. They're done with it. And they're also claiming that they have more than enough resources to do the enforcement that they are not doing in Portland against people that they still insist. And this is the amazing thing is the Portland mayor, Wilson, who does kind of look like a Ted Wheeler clone, except more, I don't know, flimsy and weak. He should know. He should know better, because at least by now Ted Wheeler knew that when he tried to go out and talk with Antifa, he got a brick thrown at his head. Apparently, Mayor Wilson hasn't figured that out yet. And he went and claimed to know that the number of necessary troops in Portland is 0 or in any other American city. So he's a real specialist on that, because the mayor of Washington, D.C., who initially resisted having federal troops to reduce the crime there, is now requesting that those National Guard troops remain until Christmas. So apparently he doesn't speak for Washington, D.C. and a whole host of other cities in other states. But he also doesn't really speak for Portland, because, he is still insisting that these are just protesters, they're still using the line from 2020 of that they're mostly peaceful. And, you know, that line, they wore it out in 2020. And so we're done listening to people who apparently thought it was fine to defend what was happening in 2020. We're done with them. We don't have to listen to people that incessantly lie in that respect. And we know that the voice of the working class and the regular everyday people and business owners is not being heard in Portland. It's certainly not being covered in the media. The one thing this is doing already, since the troops actually haven't been deployed yet, is that arrests are being made outside the ICE facility, and all the Democrats whipped themselves into a frenzy this past few days when this all started coming up, claiming that they really thought that they wanted to warn a friendly warning to the militant wing of the Democrat Party, Antifa, that they shouldn't, quote, take the bait, unquote. And if everything is peaceful and the people there are just making their voices heard, that's of no concern to the National Guard or to ICE or the feds. So if someone is going to take the bait, what bait are they taking? To commit acts of violence? Well, these are people who have already demonstrated a willingness to commit acts of violence. I think it's just a sleight of hand where the Democrats want to somehow pretend that that sending or calling for National Guard troops to be there is actually the cause of the violence. They tried that in LA, and they also tried to sue to block it, and it didn't work. It didn't work because everybody just said, no, actually, that's not it. That's not what caused the violence. The violence was clearly present prior to the arrival of any federal law enforcement. And federal law enforcement responded as they should to protect the lives, the property, and the functions of the federal government. These are the lawful functions. And so this is, oh, by the way, last week I think we talked about this, but President Trump is looking to have RICO statutes pursued to go after the interstate racketeering that Antifa does to execute this so-called decentralized organization. And by the way, the entire media is in spin mode on this because I can tell you one of the things that came up the other day was that the Associated Press was in fact trying to spin how Antifa is this decentralized movement, not a terrorist organization. And President Trump has declared them as a domestic terror organization. And anybody who pays any close attention to what they're doing, and it's covered extensively, by the way, and very successfully in the Oregon Catalyst on a regular basis, is it is, as well as by the Andy Ngo. And let's see, there's another publication. Let me go find it. It's called the something Millennial. The Post Millennial, and it's really good. And you can go and see what is actually happening. And by the way, these reporters, it's dangerous for them to be there. They get assaulted on a regular basis. And so here's Katie Davis Court, who's one of the reporters that's been covering stuff up in Seattle. She also she went behind the scenes at the ICE facility in Portland with Homeland Security on September 11th and showed everything that's happening. All this stuff not being shown in the mainstream media and in the local media. So therefore, there's a bunch of people who are like, I don't understand. Everything's fine here. And you've got Tina Kotek running around claiming that there's that the communities are safe and calm, and she and her wife can go out for lunch or coffee, and there's no problems in Portland. It's just totally safe and nice. But if you go to the ICE facility and you talk to the people who are around it, you'll see that it is, in fact, what President Trump has stated, which is that it looks and acts like a war zone. But it's a war zone where the local authorities are exercising no authority to do anything about it. And so it's time that something be done about this, because the other thing is Antifa's testing everyone to see what they can get away with. They've already had some people engage in attempted or actual assassinations, as we know, Charlie Kirk. But then they also are trying to see if anybody's actually going to clamp down on them. And where they don't get clamped down on, where politicians issue these excuses or these or don't call out the people that are actually committing the violence by name, and they just issue these bland statements, these don't take the bait suggestions, friendly suggestion to the militant wing of the Democrat Party, Antifa, then they just are encouraging it. They are actually validating the reaction that they claim is taking place. That they are saying, well, if the new National Guard troops come in, yeah, it's probably okay if you get violent. I mean, don't take the bait, but we know it's not your fault. You couldn't help it. And this is what they're doing now. It's sick. And yes, the police are running away. Did I post no, I haven't posted this one yet. This is a Oregon Catalyst article that says rioters force police to leave and a cop gets injured. This is on Sunday. And by the way, before any National Guard troops have showed up, well, you've got the Oregonian editorializing, saying there's zero cause or justification for federal troops in Portland or to authorize full force. And in this Oregonian editorial, the Catalyst points out in this paragraph, it says, despite Trump's bluster over the very limited protests outside the Immigration Customs Enforcement facility in South Portland, the city is not war ravaged, nor is the ICE building under siege by domestic terrorists. And yet, they're under siege by domestic terrorists. They called it modest protests. When you line up the reporting that shows actual video and recounts in detail what's going on, it is clear that these are not only not modest protests or mostly peaceful protests, they are domestic terrorists dedicated to interfering and overthrowing the federal government, interfering with federal law enforcement and overthrowing the federal government. And actually, many of them come out and physically and verbally threaten federal agents. Well, guess what? That's a crime. So you're going to jail. And that's what needs to happen with basically all of these people. They need to be caught in court cases, held in jail until their cases are heard. And because they are an immediate danger to the community and what they've been doing. And they immediately go out and reoffend as soon as they can. So this is like a cut and dried situation. By the way, example, Katie Davis Court said that Antifa started with security guard and apparently learned not to mess with the security guard. That's getting robbed and people trying to steal equipment. They're all wearing masks, by the way. The people who are demanding that ICE don't wear masks as they get doxxed by the Antifa people are all wearing masks. They're all wearing masks. Some are wearing gas masks because after they engage in their mostly peaceful violence, they get tear gassed at the ICE building. However, in addition, they are trying to obviously conceal their identity. This is Antifa day in and day out. It's what they do. It's their modus operandi. So please have a look at her work. She's very, very good. She's actually a truth teller. We wouldn't actually have a lot of this information if it weren't for her and Andy Ngo and Honey Badger and others that are out there, frankly, taking big risks to tell the truth. And there's been a consistent response from Republicans, which actually I was glad to see. U.S. Labor Secretary and former Congresswoman Lori Chavez DeRemer has praised President Trump sending troops to Portland. She actually spoke out back in late August when these riots at the ICE building were reaching a fever pitch. And she said it's a disaster and they should do something about it at the federal level. So she encouraged President Trump. And you know what? Having that voice in the cabinet meetings who understand what's going on probably helps. Representative Drazen, the current leader of the House Republicans in the state house, also spoke out and said, just stated the truth that the ICE facility has been subject to months of chaotic protests that have put residents and federal agents in harm's way. The governor's assertion that no national security threat and the mayor's assertion that everything is fine is tone deaf. It's shameful that state and local leaders have allowed violent mobs and domestic terrorists to assault federal law enforcement. State and local leaders have allowed this. They've allowed them to destroy property, interfere with those seeking immigration services from obtaining assistance and case management. We need order. We need to restore safety. Oregon's leaders, local leaders, have failed to provide it. So it's really becoming clear. And now all of this coverage is starting to center on this area. And this is what they're most concerned about. Because even though they like to say, don't take the bait, wink, wink, they would like to claim that the riots are caused by having more law enforcement, just like they say that more crime is caused by having more police, which is insane. But they've been saying it for years and they still believe it. But yeah, they're claiming that President Trump is trying to trigger the violence. The violence is already here. We've already seen it. And they're claiming that it's really the federal, like Maxine Dexter, the F. Trump Dexter, the congresswoman from the 3rd District to replace bow tie bonehead Blumenauer, that she is actually claiming that this show of force is just an excuse to hurt people and damage our home, like our collective home, and does not have the community's best interest at heart. We will not escalate. Really? So she speaks for Antifa now, I guess, which is appropriate because it's the militant wing of the Democrat Party, and they've run interference for it for years. And Jesse Waters, and I didn't get to, I listened to it, but I didn't get to watch it, actually reported that Antifa and the city council are coordinated with each other because the city council is asking for video and photos of the whatever means, devices and training practices, whatever ICE is using to defend the federal. They want pictures of that sent to the city council so they can help combat what ICE is doing. Well, that's in effect joining Antifa for all intents and purposes, because they are actually trying to crowdsource things that tell what the vulnerabilities are and be able to gauge. And by the way, many of the people that have engaged in some of these attacks and activities have been, such as the guy that went after the Texas ICE facility and killed 2 people before killing himself, used an app that takes reports of where ICE agents are that are sourced and reported through the app. He was using that in order to figure out where he could go and maybe kill some ICE agents. That was reported last week. And so the city council of Portland is doing something similar here. And if you want to watch and maybe barf a little bit after listening to Democrats wail and coddle Antifa and wail about how that this is all President Trump's fault, what Antifa's doing, you can go watch that press conference and let us know what you think. So here's what they said in a KATU article. They said police say that about 9:30 p.m. on Sunday, officers saw a fight between protesters and people with, quote, opposing points of view, unquote. A 17-year-old from Milwaukee was arrested and charged with assault in the fourth degree. 30 minutes later, police arrested 38-year-old Nathaniel McFarland of Portland. He was taken to Multnomah County Jail and charged with assault in the third degree. People with opposing points of view. They don't make it clear that they actually protected the people who didn't engage in assault, but merely were assaulted and were expressing a point of view. That's their jobs. That's what they should be doing. Anyway, this is the failure of the local media to speak the truth about Antifa. And they should, because there's a lot of people that are floating around that have no idea what they're talking about. And Dan Rayfield, who is the Attorney General, this is all he's done since he's been in office, is file lawsuits and against the Trump administration. He's not actually providing any law enforcement or policing or crime reduction in the state. He is just going around and filing and bragging about filing dozens and dozens and dozens of lawsuits. And now I think it's over 40 lawsuits. And so that's the latest with all of that. I try to post all of the links, but I think it's important to know that if someone says, don't take the bait, and they say, we will not escalate, and then it happens, why do these people decide they had to be violent? They're blaming someone else for their inability to stop being violent. And yet we've got politicians claiming that these people will not escalate. If they do escalate, why don't we hold the politicians accountable? Maybe, especially if they are coordinating or communicating directly with the people that are committing this violence against ICE facilities and federal officers. If they're communicating directly with them, then at some point they're collaborating with them. And they're running political interference for them, but maybe they're also doing other things. And we should find out what those other things are as they claim to act on our behalf here in the state of Oregon. Now, the only unfortunate thing about this is I think that Tina Kotek loves the fact that she can go talk about President Trump and look tough and thump her chest for the progressive left. But today, another thing happened, which is important. The Oregon Senate actually passed the transportation bill under party lines after multiple delays, a delay of nearly a month, actually, in the special session. And this was a bill that received 93% negative reaction, input, testimony, and received no support from any actual Republicans. Cyrus Yvadi is a former Republican who voted for it and then switched parties. So good riddance. But one piece of good news coming out of this after it passed along party lines is that it looks like this might get referred to the voters for voters to have a say, because voters really don't like paying more for transportation when they're not getting transportation as a result. And repeatedly, they have been getting more and more costs that they've been warned they have to pay. Otherwise, potholes won't be filled, snow won't be plowed. Meanwhile, as we pointed out on this show before, there's a $28 million DEI department in the Oregon Department of Transportation that is functioning as if business as usual. So if you run through a pothole, just think DEI when you go through that pothole, because they couldn't fill that pothole because they were busy making sure that Department of Transportation employees knew what proper pronouns to use. That's what you're paying for, and that's going to come up in this um, entire affair when this gets referred to the ballot. So it does look like. Let me see. I'll post this too. This is the article from last Thursday, just talking about the likelihood that it'll get referred. Oh, 95%. So Oregon Capital Insider said 5,000 pieces of written testimony were submitted during August 25th through September 3rd. Nearly 95% were in opposition. And so the Democrats are on the wrong side of this, and now the voters will get a say. And there's so many other problems that the Democrats are now going to create. One of them, which is important, is they're going to go and try to change the taxation system so they can tax and keep money from people earning tips, overtime, and Social Security. They're furious that the federal One Big Beautiful bill has taken that off the list of taxable income, and they say it's going to cost them $800 million here in the state of Oregon. So what are they going to do? They're going to go and make it taxable again. And remember how they say that it's billionaires that are receiving all this relief under the One Big Beautiful bill, but actually all it did is it made it so that taxes didn't go up and we didn't have the biggest tax increase in history. There's no billionaires earning tips, overtime, and Social Security. So this is something to pay attention to. And now Representative Juncker is calling this out. He's saying that legislative protocols are really being breached in the legislature, all the norms, so that they can pass a bunch of tax hikes. And so they can do what I just described with the taxable income and engage in unconstitutional discrimination in Oregon's workforce programs by maintaining DEI, which will not get federal funding anymore. So that's why they are going and adding in, saying they need money for other things because they want to bait and switch and use that money to continue to fund the DEI that the feds won't fund. And they removed him specifically from a couple of committees because they didn't like him speaking out about the policies that he feels are radical that the Democrats are pursuing. This is not how a legislature is supposed to function. You're not supposed to be running around silencing people and stripping them out of committees because you don't like what they say. This is something that just shows you this is where the Democrats are at. This is what they do. And the economy is thanking them for what they've been doing because Oregon is now experiencing a historic wave of job cuts. Now, these job cuts are starting to match some of the worst days of the Great Recession back in 2008. Most recently, Roseburg Forest Products laid off 107 people and closed a plant in Douglas County. And it recounts where the job cuts are happening all over the state. Other states might be the beneficiary of many of these companies shifting their operations there. And we've been seeing that for months now. So what are the Democrats doing? Are they declaring an emergency about this? Are they even saying they need to raise taxes to stop job cuts from happening? No, they're just ignoring it. And to be honest, they're going to end up with a lot less tax revenue because when people don't have jobs and they can't work and they don't even have a reason to stay in the state, then you're going to see the tax base atrophy dramatically. And that's going to leave us in a bad place. Just a couple of national news stories. There is a battle that's going to unfold here. It may come to a head on Wednesday. Trump met with congressional leaders on the Democrats, and it didn't produce any deal because the Democrats are asking for like $1 trillion in spending, more spending in order to keep the government open. And the money that they want it for, in part, is for funding benefits for illegal immigrants, which the federal government has no business funding. But they're insisting on it. And they did. Democrats have been running, and they said it all the way back to 2016 and 2020. They said, when they were asked to raise their hands, would they support having federal money pay for healthcare benefits for illegal immigrants? They said yes. So they're just doing what they said they were going to do. But this isn't a country where American citizens struggle to meet the costs of healthcare, and they actually want to go and give all this money, take it from American taxpayers, and give it to illegal immigrants, and millions of whom should be leaving, actually, because they've already been ordered deported by an immigration judge. Others because they're criminals and shouldn't have been here in the first place. So that's kind of the long and the short of it for today. There's so much more we could talk about, but one thing you can take some solace in is that there will probably be mass firings of federal workers if this does turn into a shutdown, and it'll be different than the Biden one. The real things that the government should be doing will continue to receive funding because you just need tax revenue to keep doing that. And the additional funding that's needed when they run short on, money and for discretionary parts of the government may well be cut. And Democrats hate that, but they are betting that they can just go ahead and blame President Trump for this, when in fact, they are the ones who cast no votes, for what is called the Clean Continuing Resolution, the Clean CR, that they voted for 13 times during the Biden administration to keep the government open. And now they won't do it. So I think it's because Chuck Schumer's in real political trouble in New York, as are many moderate Democrats. They have to go radical and go all AOC squad in order to stay in office and keep their jobs, which is all they care about. So anyway, thank you again for joining me here tonight. Hope to bring you another show tomorrow night. We'll see. You'll certainly have Don and Leslie on Wednesday. Anyway,